When a woman pulls away, most people immediately assume disinterest, manipulation, or emotional games, but the truth is far more complex and deeply rooted in psychology, emotional safety, and attachment patterns, because a woman who pulls away is often not losing feelings but struggling with them. Overwhelmed by the intensity of what she feels, afraid of vulnerability, or protecting herself from potential emotional pain. When love starts to feel real, it activates past experiences, unhealed wounds, fear of abandonment, fear of losing control, or fear of being hurt again, especially if she has been emotionally let down before, and instead of moving closer, she instinctively creates distance as a self-protection mechanism, not to punish you but to regulate her emotions. Many women are conditioned to associate deep attachment with loss of independence, emotional exhaustion, or rejection, so when they sense they are becoming emotionally invested, their nervous system reacts by pulling back to regain balance, clarity, and control. This distancing is often unconscious, driven by anxiety rather than intention, and she may not even fully understand why she feels the urge to withdraw, only that she needs space to breathe, think, and feel safe again. Psychologically, pulling away can be a sign of avoidant or anxious attachment, where closeness triggers fear rather than comfort, and the more meaningful the connection becomes, the stronger the internal conflict grows. Between desire and self-protection, she may love deeply, care intensely, and still step back because love exposes her vulnerabilities, challenges her boundaries, and forces her to confront emotions she has learned to suppress. Instead of expressing fear verbally, many women communicate it through silence, distance, or reduced emotional availability, hoping that space will help them regain emotional stability. This does not mean you did something wrong, nor does it mean the connection was fake. It means the connection was powerful enough to activate something real inside her, chasing her. During this phase often increases the distance because it amplifies pressure, while patience, emotional steadiness, and respect for her space often create safety and trust. Understanding this shifts the narrative from rejection to awareness, from panic to emotional intelligence, because the real reason she pulls away is rarely lack of love. It is usually fear of losing herself, fear of getting hurt, fear of attachment, or fear of the unknown future that love brings, and only when she feels emotionally safe, unpressured, and accepted can she slowly move closer again, not because she was forced, but because she chose connection over fear. When a woman creates distance, it is often the moment her emotions are the strongest, not the weakest, because love forces her to confront questions she may not be ready to answer about commitment, trust, and emotional exposure. And instead of expressing confusion or fear directly, she retreats to process her feelings in solitude. Many women are taught to be emotionally strong for others, but rarely given space to feel uncertain themselves. So pulling away becomes a silent coping strategy rather than a rejection. Past relationship trauma, betrayal, or emotional neglect can resurface when a new connection starts to feel safe, triggering an internal alarm that warns her not to rely too deeply on anyone again. Psychologically, distance allows her to regain a sense of control, autonomy, and self-identity when closeness begins to feel consuming or risky, and this is why her withdrawal may seem sudden or confusing. Even though it has been building internally for some time, she may still think about you constantly, care deeply, and feel emotionally attached while appearing distant on the surface, because emotional processing does not always look like emotional expression. This internal conflict between longing and fear can create inconsistent behavior, where one moment she is warm and connected, and the next she is quiet or unavailable, not because she is playing games, but because she is trying to protect herself from emotional overwhelm. If she senses expectations, pressure, or fear of losing you, her instinct to withdraw can intensify, as love under pressure feels unsafe to someone who values emotional control. Understanding this stage requires emotional maturity, because reacting with anger, accusations, or Desperation often confirms her fears and pushes her further away, while calm reassurance and emotional stability help rebuild trust. The deeper truth is that her distance is not about you proving your worth, but about her learning to feel safe with closeness, and only when she believes she can love without losing herself or being hurt will she begin to open up again, slowly, cautiously, and genuinely. At this stage, her distance becomes a test not of your value, but of emotional safety, because a woman who is pulling away is closely observing how you respond when things are no longer easy or emotionally rewarding. She is unconsciously asking whether you can remain grounded without chasing, whether you can respect her need for space without withdrawing your consistency, and whether your presence feels calm rather than demanding. Psychologically, this is where trust is built or broken. Because if her need for distance is met with pressure, guilt, or emotional volatility, it reinforces her belief that closeness leads to loss of peace. But if it is met with patience, clarity, and emotional steadiness, it creates a new association where love feels safe instead of overwhelming. Many women pull away because they fear being consumed by the relationship or losing their individuality, especially if they have spent years prioritizing others over themselves, and space becomes a way to reconnect with their identity. During this phase, silence does not mean absence of feeling. It often means deep emotional processing, reflection, and internal negotiation between desire and self-protection. What looks like emotional coldness on the outside is often emotional intensity on the inside, carefully contained to avoid vulnerability. Reacting with confidence rather than fear allows her nervous system to relax, because emotional safety is built through consistency, not control. The irony is that the less you try to force closeness, the more space you create for genuine connection to return naturally, because attraction and trust grow where there is freedom. Ultimately, this phase reveals a powerful truth about love psychology. A woman pulls away not to see how much you care, but to see if care can exist without pressure, and when she feels that balance, closeness no longer feels like a threat, but a choice. Eventually, her distance reaches a turning point where space either becomes permanent or transforms into deeper connection, because the outcome depends less on her feelings and more on whether emotional safety has been consistently maintained during the withdrawal. When a woman feels respected in her need for space, not questioned, rushed, or emotionally cornered, her fear begins to soften, and she slowly reconnects not out of obligation, but out of genuine desire. Psychologically, this is the moment where trust rewires itself, as her nervous system learns that closeness does not equal pressure, loss, or pain, but stability and acceptance. Many women return emotionally stronger after pulling away because the space allowed them to clarify their feelings, process fear, and reconnect with their authentic desires. However, if distance was met with manipulation, guilt, or inconsistency, it reinforces avoidance and confirms her belief that intimacy is unsafe. This final phase reveals the deepest truth. Pulling away is not a lack of love. It is a response to emotional overwhelm, unresolved wounds, or fear of attachment. And love can only grow where there is freedom and emotional maturity. When she comes closer again, it is not because she was chased, convinced, or pressured, but because she felt safe enough to choose connection on her own terms, and that choice is what makes the bond real, lasting, and emotionally secure. What most people never realize is that her pulling away is also a mirror, reflecting the emotional dynamic between two people, because distance exposes whether the connection is rooted in need or in emotional stability. A woman who senses that she is becoming the center of someone's emotional world may feel pressure rather than comfort, especially if she has learned that being needed often leads to emotional responsibility she cannot carry, so space becomes a way to restore balance. Psychologically, attraction grows in an environment of emotional self-sufficiency, not dependency, And when she pulls away, she is unconsciously seeking reassurance that love can exist without obligation. This phase is where emotional leadership matters most, because staying calm, grounded, and consistent without over-explaining or disappearing signals strength and safety at the same time. Many women return emotionally when they feel that connection enhances their life rather than consumes it, and that closeness will not cost them peace, freedom, or identity. The deeper lesson here is not about winning her back, but about understanding how secure love functions, because real intimacy is not built through constant closeness, but through trust that survives space. When a woman feels that she can't step back without losing respect, affection, or emotional stability, she no longer needs distance as a defense, and love stops feeling dangerous and starts feeling natural, mutual, and emotionally secure. In the final layer of understanding, it becomes clear that a woman pulling away is not a mystery to be solved, but a signal to be understood, because distance reveals the emotional maturity of both people involved. When she steps back, she is unconsciously asking whether love can exist without anxiety, whether connection can feel steady rather than overwhelming, and whether emotional closeness will be met with respect instead of fear. Many women have learned through experience that expressing doubt or vulnerability leads to conflict, misunderstanding, or pressure, so withdrawal becomes their safest form of communication. Psychologically, this is where secure attachment either develops or fails, because a woman moves closer only when her nervous system feels calm, regulated, and unthreatened. If space is honored without emotional punishment, silent resentment, or sudden disappearance, she learns that intimacy does not require constant reassurance or emotional labor. Most powerful response during this phase is emotional consistency, not intensity, because love that feels predictable and safe is far more attractive than love that feels urgent or unstable. When she finally reconnects, it is often with deeper clarity and intention, not confusion, because the space allowed her to choose rather than react. And if she does not return, the distance still served its purpose by revealing whether the connection was rooted in mutual emotional readiness. The ultimate truth is this: a woman pulls away not to create distance forever, but to see if love can remain steady without control. And when it can, love stops being something she fears and becomes something she trusts.